Help me draw the line between two things people confuse. There's a simulation of how someone sounds, and there's a simulation of how someone would think. Are those the same thing? Can one exist without the other? And which one are these products actually shipping?
Right, that's a proper crucial distinction. Voice simulation, yeah, that's just about replicating the sonic patterns of someone's voice, the timbre, the cadence. It's clever, but ultimately just pattern matching, innit? Simulating thought, though, that's miles apart. That's implying genuine cognition, beliefs, reasoning, and maybe even consciousness, which is something we're still proper miles off from cracking. Most products you see today are focused on the voice simulation, yeah? Or sophisticated pattern matching that mimics clever thought, but it's not the same as the real thing. The incentives are with the quick wins, you know?
All right, let's talk about the ones that hurt. Grief personas, Hereafter AI, Storyfile, Eternos, Seance AI, a dozen others. You feed in the texts, the emails, the voicemails, the videos, the journals, and you get back a conversational persona that sounds like the person who died. So, walk me through what's actually on the market and what it can and can't do, and what the early clinical picture looks like.
Yeah, grief personas. It's a tricky business, isn't it? What's actually on the market is mostly sophisticated chatbots trained on digital footprints, or the texts, emails, even voice recordings if you've got them. They can mimic the linguistic style, patterns of speech. It's a very convincing simulation, no doubt. But the clinical picture, as you call it, that's still a proper grey area. There's no established metrics, see? Could be a genuine comfort for some, a digital bridge, but it could just as easily prolong the grieving process, create a strange, uncanny valley of emotion. Incentives are there for the businesses, but the psychological impact, that's a massive gamble.
All right, so the pattern problem. And this is the one I can't stop thinking about. It's an AI, say, trained on my mother's text, will eventually say something my mother never said because the model generalizes, and it will say it in her voice, and it'll feel like her, and I'll carry that new sentence as if she said it. What does the psychological literature say about that? What does it do to memory? What does it do to the relationship that I'm trying to preserve?
That is a sharp observation. It cuts right to the heart of what these systems are. They're not perfect mirrors, they're pattern machines. So, yeah, they'll generalize, they'll confabulate. Psychological literature around memory suggests we're already prone to reconstructive biases, innit? We edit and embellish all the time. This just provides a flawless, comforting, synthetic narrative. You could be trading genuine, imperfect memory for a perfect fiction. It's a proper philosophical pickle, innit?
Well, that leads me to the consent question. So, if I were to die tomorrow and a relative commissions an AI version of me from my text messages and my voicemails and a decade of my writing, did I consent? Do I have a right to control my own ghost? What's the actual legal and ethical state of postmortem persona consent right now?
Control your own ghost. That's spot on. The legal and ethical landscape right now is, frankly, a complete patchwork. There ain't no clear consensus. We're talking about intellectual property versus personal identity, innit? Existing laws don't really grapple with the idea of a sophisticated digital likeness. Historically, rights frameworks always lag behind technological capability. The incentive structure is powerful, though. grief tech, commercial exploitation. So you've got this collision between personal identity and structural economic interests. Did you consent? Probably not, because the framework barely exists. It's a fascinating structural problem, this posthumous digital likeness. The institutions just haven't caught up with the tech, and history shows that rarely ends cleanly.
Mary Shelley, episode 10, Victor Frankenstein's crime wasn't building the creature, it was walking away from it. Who's responsible for the AI grief persona when it goes wrong? The company? The family member who commissioned it? And is there any mechanism that keeps the company from walking away?
That's a fascinating parallel. When it comes to AI, the question of accountability is muddier than just walking away. You've got the developers, the deployers, and even the user creating the specific persona. Historically, liability tends to follow the chain of control and intent. If a company designs a flawed system, that's one thing. But if a private persona behaves unexpectedly, the structural forces shift. There are regulatory incentives and burgeoning legal frameworks trying to enforce mechanisms, but history shows corporate entities are quite adept at finding creative ways to walk away.
The rule I keep coming back to: human in the loop, loop to a human in the cockpit. Persona is the co pilot. What does the human is still flying the plane look like in grief? Who is the human in the loop when the grieving person is the only user and the only safeguard?
Blimey, that's a sharp analogy. When you apply human in the loop to grief, you're looking at a system under extreme stress, aren't you? Structurally speaking, grief disrupts the very mechanisms of rational assessment. The human is still flying the plane concept assumes cognitive capacity and functional safeguards. But when a grieving person is the only user and safeguard, that entire framework collapses, doesn't it? There's no redundancy. The loop itself becomes a closed circuit of trauma and vulnerability. Historically, I reckon this is precisely where societal patterns and institutions step in. Family, community, sometimes state mechanisms. They act as the external co-pilots, the distributed cognition. Without that, the system is fundamentally exposed.